Hi, welcome back to Unit 3, Punctuation. This is Lesson 10, Abbreviations. You'll find this information in your textbook on HB 105 through HB 107. We use abbreviations all the time, but we're not talking about texting. We're talking about formal academic English. You can still use abbreviations, but there are some things to keep in mind. First, only use an abbreviation you know your reader will recognize. If there's any chance a reader won't know the term, spell it out and include the abbreviation in parentheses on the first reference. Then you can use the abbreviation for all subsequent references. Here's a good first reference example. In a recent press release, officials from the international organization Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, stress the need for more effective tuberculosis drugs. In the U.S., we know MSF as Doctors Without Borders. However, the organization began in France and their actual name is Médecins Sans Frontières, or MSF. Periods are generally used in abbreviations of personal titles that precede a name, like Dr. Gupta, and in Latin abbreviations such as E.g. or etc. Periods are not needed for state abbreviations, such as these for Texas, California, and New York, or for abbreviations made up of initials like AP or YMCA. In some cases, periods are optional, as in BCE. Just be sure to use or omit them consistently. If you're unsure about whether to use a period or not, check a dictionary. Titles before names are usually abbreviated and require a period, like Mr. Ed Stanford, Dr. Ralph Lopez, and Professor Susan Miller. However, when the job title comes after the name, like Ralph Lopez, MD, or Susan Miller, PhD, don't use a period. Junior is not a job title, so it still takes a period. I don't know why. That's just the rule. However, don't abbreviate a job title if it's not attached to a name. For example, instead of writing the RN who worked with trauma victims specialized in cardiac care, you would say the nurse who worked with trauma victims specialized in cardiac care. There are some abbreviations that we use with numbers. For example, the BC following 632 means before Christ and doesn't require periods. BCE stands for before the Common Era and doesn't require periods. We Americans are beginning to realize that not everyone is Christian, and so BCE is favored over BC. AD is Latin for Anno Domini and means in the year of the Lord. However, like BC, this abbreviation is showing its age and its nearsightedness. CE for Common Era is the better term. AM is the abbreviation for ante-meridian. Ante is Latin for before, and meri means middle, and diem is day, so AM means before midday or before noon. PM means post-meridian or afternoon. Notice that when AM and PM are capped, no periods are required. But to reduce confusion between AM and AM, periods are used when these abbreviations are lowercase. A couple of other notes with these abbreviations: BC, BCE, and CE appear after the date, but AD goes before. That's probably because if you read the abbreviations as words they stand for, 632 years before Common Era makes sense, but 800 in the year of the Lord doesn't. However, in the year of the Lord 800 is less goofy, although 800 Common Era is better. You can't use these abbreviations without having numbers attached. Although in casual speech, it might be okay to say by early PM, all prospective subjects for the experiment had checked in. In academic writing, it's more appropriate to say by early afternoon. As we've already discussed, in general, don't abbreviate anything your reader might not recognize. But there are some things you should never abbreviate in the body of your paper, regardless of whether they're recognizable or not. Months, days of the week, colleges and universities, cities, states, and countries are not abbreviated in the body of your paper. However, all of those things are abbreviated in footnotes, bibliographies, and works cited pages. How do you know when to abbreviate? Check your formatting guide, because they're all different. The same applies to Latin abbreviations like ibid, op sit, and et al. While you can use them in notes and documentation, they're not appropriate in the body of your paper. Use the English equivalent instead. This example uses a Latin abbreviation. Being left-handed presents some challenges for writers, e.g., it hurts to write in spiral notebooks and ink smears across the page and the side of your hand. E.g. stands for exempli gratia and means for example. In your paper's body, use for example instead of e.g. In this lesson, we talked about how to use abbreviations with names, with numbers, and in notes and documentation. As always, check Canvas to see if there's a quiz for abbreviations, and I'll see you next time for Lesson 11, Numbers. Thanks for stopping by. Let me know if you need help. And thanks to Slides Carnival and Unsplash for their help with my slides template. See you next time.